What's the rudest thing a guest has ever done in your home? Everyone has a story from their childhood that still upsets them. This is mine. I was 5 years old and my snotty older cousin was over at our house. I'd just gotten a copy of Mike Tyson's Punch-Out for my birthday. He was getting his butt kicked by King Hippo and he got so angry he rage quit. But he didn't just rage quit, he ripped the cartridge out of the Nintendo and spit into it. Then he threw it across the room and stormed out. I told my parents what happened and they told his parents and they made him apologize. But the game was ruined. It would kind of play but would freeze up all the time. My family barely had enough money to get me the game for my birthday, never mind buying it again. I was sure I would never be able to play it again. Then for Christmas, this little crap got Mike Tyson's Punch-Out. So my older brother went over to his house and switched out our ruined cartridge with his. It was awesome. That's a baller play, honestly. And to be fair, if this kid can't even beat King Hippo, he doesn't deserve to be playing the game anyway. At least not a working version of it. Story 2. I was a kid, probably 9 or 10, and my mom had a friend and her son over for lunch. The kid disappeared for about 10 minutes, and at the time I thought he had gone to the bathroom because I really had to go. So when he came back, I quickly maneuvered my way past him into the room before the bathroom, where we had a fish tank. This would be completely irrelevant if the fish tank wasn't cloudy and swirling about. At first glance, I didn't know what it was until I noticed smashed and ripped apart pieces of little fish faces moving around in the swirl. The kid reached into the fish tank and squeezed the ever-loving life out of every single fish in that tank. Update 1. Ended up speaking with my mother anyway, and when I reminded her of it, she said she would have to call me back after she thought about it. After talking it over with my father, they determined the date at which they had the fish tank in that room as 1985, because it was remodeled shortly after. It was 3 large, fancy goldfish in an 8-gallon aquarium. They were laughing at all the details that came back to them. The date also means I was 8 years old, so I was close. The time frame helped her remember exactly when it happened. My mom remembers it as several women over for a birthing class. At the time, my mom was a midwife and did everything baby from breathing to delivery. One of the women had a 10 to 11-year-old boy who she kept losing track of, would keep wandering off as she put it, and ended up eventually being the culprit. He was not scolded, but rather talked to in a conversation up close and quietly. My mom said she didn't really remember much about her, the kid's mom, reaction because I was crying so my mom was dealing with me rather than them. She luckily kept track of all the baby's family she helped deliver up till a certain point when she stopped midwifing in the late 80s. She also agreed to try and get the answer of what happened to the kid if possible, after I explained Reddit wanted to know. Which I also had to explain what Reddit actually was. Story 3. Not nearly in the same ballpark as the rest of these, but my in-laws always just walk right in like they own the place. Drives me effing nuts. A couple years ago, I put some vinyl window tinting on the front door to keep the house cooler in the summer. I could see out the window, but no one could see in. I'd lock the door and enjoy the looks of confusion on their faces as they tried to open the door and couldn't. Story 4. Wasn't home when this happened, but some family friend I've never met and their kid comes over one afternoon. Kid gets bored and decided it's a great idea to disassemble every Lego build I've kept over the last 10 years. Almost everything was built from imagination, so no instructions to rebuild again. I was devastated when I got home seeing Lego pieces spread across the entire floor of my room. Story 5. We had a bunch of pizza in the fridge we'd ordered the night before they arrived. There were 3 other families already there, so we had ordered a lot, and there were much leftovers. And everyone who was there at the time had pitched in to pay. The one family who hadn't been there for pizza arrived the morning after, and were talking about going out to eat. The families were all okay with this, thinking it'd be great to have lunch in individual families and get back together for dinner. Everyone was loading up, including the most recent arrival family. But when we drove off, they unloaded, went back inside, and ate all the pizza. We would have told them it was fine if they had said, "Yo, could we eat that pizza for lunch?" But pretending they were going someplace and then sneaking back inside and eating it was so shady. They aren't poor, just really cheap. This was my uncle and his family. This was at my grandma's house. She had just passed and everyone was getting together for the funeral. My mom was basically in charge, and since I'm the oldest grandchild at 24, I was heavily involved as well. We locked the door, but every family had a key. We did not confront them. It isn't worth it to get into it with them, we barely see them anyway. I think my mom would prefer to build a stronger bond with him and his family since he is her little brother. P.S. They're staying at our house right now. If you got leftovers, keep an eye on them. Story 6. A colleague was coming into town for a meeting. I invited him to stay with me so he didn't have to stay with our boss. I specifically told him that the beer in the fridge wasn't mine and asked him not to drink it. Well, not only did he drink all my roommate's beer while I slept and refused to replace it, he also trashed my apartment. All the cupboards left open, toilet unflushed, beer cans and cigarettes everywhere. Yeah, he smoked inside. The following day, he made me so uncomfortable in my own home by repeatedly telling me that he was disappointed that we didn't F, and that he thought that's why I invited him to stay with me. He knows that I live in a work apartment and that we have a guest room specifically for company employees that travel to the city. Clarification on my living situation. I have 2 roommates high up in my company that travel a lot. Work got a 3-bedroom and they pay all my utilities in exchange for me washing the sheets, dishes, etc. When they aren't around, sometimes I get asked to host other traveling colleagues. Neither of my roommates were there when this happened. I did not take pictures. I wish I had thought of that though. I did, however, have a witness. A close coworker friend spent the night because he had been drinking. The douche colleague then accused us of sleeping together. We didn't. And said that if I slept with him, there was no reason for me to not sleep with him too. You're right. I'm going to report it. I mean, it's cool that the company pays for the utilities and all, but kind of forcing you to be an Airbnb for the business is, that's just asking for trouble. Especially if people are harassing you like this. I mean, good grief. Story 7. My friend entered my home, and my very typically shy cat came up to see what was what and greet him. He said, "I hate cats," and kicked her. Haven't talked to him since. And edit to say he knew I had a cat. We were in our 20s. He wasn't a petulant child. Edit 2. Well, crap, I love how protective everyone is of my cat and their pets in general. So sweet and terrifying. Lots of throat punching happening below. For those asking about the kind of kick, this person did not punt her across the room, but it was a kick with some liftoff, not a light nudge. I do that daily because she's my shadow and I don't want to hurt her when I can't have her zipping around under my feet. She's fine now, and she was fine then too. It wasn't hard enough to hurt her permanently, perhaps emotionally, the poor sweet kitty. It shocked both her and me. I'm my cat's protector and advocate, but I hate to say that back then I had a lot of confidence issues, and I was taken way aback by his swift action. Caught me off guard. I think I yelled, "What the F? Don't kick my cat!" But I can't remember anything I did that was remarkable afterwards, other than the decision to stop inviting him over. No throat punching or otherwise. I've told this story IRL before, and I don't want to post my cat because she's very identifiable, and this comment got way more traction than I anticipated. Sorry you're all fired up. I was too, just not brave enough to show it. I should have kicked him out. Edit 3. To say that there are shades of gray between a nudge and a field goal kick, if it was just a nudge, I would have put my cat away without yelling because everyone knows that some cats love to investigate people who are disinterested in them. That's a douche move. I will say, what was funny about it was the miscommunication I had in my own head. That people were saying, what kind of kick was it? I didn't take it as they were asking how hard was it, but what kind of, was it a roundhouse or a back kick, wheel kick? What kind of karate did this guy bust on the cat? But in all seriousness, I mean, 1, don't kick animals in general. That's a straight no-no. But especially, not that you should even have to say it, especially don't kick other people's animals. Story 8. Had my wife's ex-husband turn up at the door to stay for 10 days. We moved to Australia from UK. He came over, ostensibly to see his daughter, and arrived at the door with a suitcase. His 10-year-old daughter was ecstatic. What do? We assumed he'd get a hotel, motel, or something. While living with us, broke a sandstone wedding present we had received from my brother. F that guy. We never badmouthed him, just swallowed it all with a sanguine smile. At 21, daughter says, "Thanks for not telling me my dad is a douche. I discovered it, he is myself." Story 9. My little sister, 23 at the time, house and dog sat my 3 dogs for a month while my husband and I went to Europe. One of these dogs happens to be an 8-week-old puppy of hers that we adopted because she couldn't keep him after a recent breakup and move. Everything seemed to be going just fine via the FaceTime calls and almost daily texts. But it was a whole other story when we got home. There was dog urine and crap everywhere. Under the kitchen table, all over inside, and the entire surrounding area by the puppy's kennel. She apparently ran out of puppy pads and instead started using our freaking bath towels to line the kennel. Instead of washing the towels, she threw them in a pile in the backyard. When she ran out of towels, she moved onto my husband's shirts that were in the laundry. She also had some guy stay with her that she allowed to smoke cigarettes in our house, including our bedroom. At one point, she accidentally locked herself out, climbed through a window, and broke a lamp in the process. She also broke our vacuum in her pathetic attempt to clean up before we came home. While all of this was happening, a pipe apparently broke underground in our backyard on day 4 of our trip. It was raining heavily, so it was hard to tell, especially if you completely ignored the sound of full blast running water and the notice that was put on our door by the city to contact them urgently. Sister took the notice, set it on the table, and never mentioned it. We came home to an $1,800 water bill on top of everything else. It was an utter disaster to come home after a month of traveling and a full day of flying. We were effing furious. We made her pay to replace all of our towels, have the carpets cleaned, and she paid for the puppy's food and pet insurance for a year. I didn't talk to her for quite a while after that. Little sister is fine now. It's been 4 years. Back to who she normally was, a responsible, tidy, respectful person. The whole thing happened to coincide with an awful breakup she had after 7 years that spun her into depression and self-worth issues, paired with some heavy drinking. Our relationship is back on track and has been since she profusely apologized and paid up. But I had refused to speak to her for about 7 months because of it. At the end of the day, it's just stuff. Story 10. One of my best mates came to spend the night, so my folks decided to splash out and get Chinese takeout for everyone. I come from a family of 7, so he made 8. We got 5 to 6 dishes and 2 big tubs of fried rice. My mate helped himself to the entire first tub, and when confronted about it by me, helpfully pointed out that there was still another tub for the 7 of us. Story 11. Stole medicine out of my bathroom after eating my food and smoking all my cigs that were on the table. I know they stole the medicine because of the blood-curdling scream that came out of the bathroom because the medicine they ingested were the pills from a UTI. They numb your biz but make you pee bright red. Stupid idiot thought he was dying. I didn't even invite him. He was a roommate's guest. Well, that'll make you learn your lesson real quick. Story 12. My grandpa was visiting us for a day and I was ill. Had fever and all, so I was in bed, resting. After we all ate lunch, I crawled back into my bed. 5 minutes later, he came into my room, kicked me out of my bed, and started to have a nap. My mom came to my room to check on me a few minutes later. She found me lying on the floor next to the bed and kicked him out of my bed. Told him to leave. I was like 10 years old then. My grandpa is useless but believes men run the world. My grandma only had 2 daughters and he was upset. Eldest sibling is always the best, but my mom, youngest, being brighter than the eldest, upset him real bad. Then my mom had me, daughter, and my little brother. He was upset with my arrival but ecstatic with my brother. He tried to control my brother, but he couldn't because he was growing old and my parents and grandma interfered with it constantly. I was weaker than him, so I was an easy target for him. He did so much more than taking my bed, like he tried to run me over with his car, but that's another story for another time. My grandpa was driving and sped up, braked in front of me in a small parking lot as a joke. One day he took me shopping and it was extremely boring for me because he only shopped for himself and made me carry everything he bought. Once we got back to his car, he had me put everything away in the trunk, and as soon as I closed the trunk, he drove away. WTF. I was confused, didn't know what to do, so I just stood there. But he came back a few minutes later laughing and saying, "You didn't really think I'd leave you, did you?" I was upset but happy he came back, so I reached for the door. And I missed because he moved the car forward. He did that a few more times and drove away again. WTF number 2. I was crying at this point. Then I spotted something on the ground. It was my angel pocket, Polly Pocket. I must have dropped it while I was chasing the car. I started to walk toward it and I saw him coming this way. Next moment, my butt was on the ground and the car stopped right in front of me with a loud screech. He sped up and braked to scare me. I sure was scared all right. I thought he was going to run me over. I was crying uncontrollably. He told me to shut up and get in. As we were leaving the parking lot, he said, "You're no fun. It was just a joke." I sure had fun. My grandpa is an absolute a-hole. That's, quite the family you got there. Story 13. While my husband and I were gone at work, my mother-in-law took it upon herself to clean our house and organize our things. Twice. Yeah, she's only allowed in the house on an invitation-only basis now. Edit. My MIL is really a super kind and generous lady. I forgave her and harbor no ill will towards her for doing this in the past. She has worked really hard to respect our boundaries and privacy since this all happened a few years ago. As far as the organized thing, that wasn't meant to imply she stole from us. She just moved our stuff around so we couldn't find anything for a few weeks. Also, RIP inbox. Story 14. Happened to me in the 3rd grade. My mom's friend stole my holographic hockey cards. I didn't even notice until the next day when I saw him on the bus showing the cards he stole from me to his friends. Edit. Since everyone is asking, I did get my cards back along with a pretty nice bouncy ball. I'll post pictures of the cards after work. I also remember another story that happened a year ago at my parents' housewarming party. One of the guests asked if the flooring was real hardwood or laminate, then proceeded to test it out by taking out their key and scratching the floor. It was hardwood and it left a scratch. Who the F does such a thing? Imagine somebody doing that to anything else. Like, hey, what kind of paint you got on your car? Is that matte or metallic? It doesn't matter. Just don't key it. Story 15. One time a younger guest went on my parents' iPad and bought around $70 to $80 worth of in-app transactions. They were young, but the response after getting caught was along the lines of, the guest should be given nice things. They were young, so maybe they didn't know better. Edit. Many people have asked some questions about the guest. They were like 5 to 6 years old at the time. I don't remember if the family paid the money back, however, I'm pretty sure the kid got punished severely. We gave the kid the iPad and left him alone, and in hindsight, yes, that was pretty stupid. Story 16. Had some friends over and one of my buddies went to the bathroom. When I walked in, I heard something rattling. He was stealing Vicodin that my wife got the day before from getting a root canal and still needed. Edit. When I walked in is referring to walking back in the house. That bathroom was off the kitchen. He didn't hear me come in the house and had the door to the bathroom cracked slightly, so I looked in when I heard the rattling. No, I don't just walk into the bathroom. At the same time, most of my guy friends just slightly shut the door, and even that when they're taking a leak. Our group of friends have been friends now for around 30 some odd years, so we're all probably too close. That's when you reach the ODDP, as Rob Dyrdek put it, the open door dumping policy. It's a bit too close for comfort. Story 17. My husband let a former coworker crash on the couch because he had been drinking and we didn't want him to drive. Woke up the next morning and he had stolen our computer, a cell phone, a little bit of cash, and our cigarettes. Turns out he had a drug problem. We got our computer back, had a drunk friend puke on my son's bedroom floor. He thought it was the bathroom. My son wasn't home, thank goodness. And had a different drunk friend pee all over my bathroom floor, which I discovered by walking into the bathroom the next morning while wearing socks. I need to stop letting drunk people stay over. That sounds like I got a good heart, but, to what end, right? Story 18. Not sure if this would be considered rude, but for sure not a good thing to do. I had 2 Australian kids staying at my house for a baseball tournament one time. One of them was a chronic bedwetter but never told us. He stayed for 5 nights and peed the bed each night without telling us. Instead, each night he pushed whatever he peed on to the end of the bed. First night, the sheets. Second night, the actual mattress protector to stop any pee from getting to it. It was a bunk bed my brothers and I slept on as children. And lastly, he peed directly on the mattress for 3 nights. Ruined the mattress, and we had no idea till he left. The real kicker, though, was when he took a nap on our couch, peed all over it, and then fled the scene, and we assumed the dog had done it. Until we saw the bed, that is. I think that is something you should tell people who open their home to you so they can prepare. And please, don't sleep on the couch if you know you got a problem. Also, not trying to shame anyone for this kind of stuff. I feel like it's more common than most people realize, and I honestly just feel bad for him. Just wish he could have been honest with us so we could have helped him out a bit. Okay, right. Seems I've taken a leak all over your house there. Sorry about that. Story 19. Back when I was younger, around 12 or 13, I remember my parents had another couple over that they had known for a short period of time. They brought their husky over to the house, but we had a dog of ours that simply didn't get along well with other animals. This friendly couple had the audacity to demand that we put our dog in his kennel so that their dog could come on in. Needless to say, they didn't stay for dinner that day, nor did I ever see them again. Story 20. Girlfriend of a roommate stayed the night frequently, so maybe she started feeling like it was her place too. Bless her heart. I have a lot of kitchen equipment and I do not mind sharing as long as people clean it and keep it nice. So almost everything in the kitchen was mine. Anyway, this female dog took it upon herself to rearrange things in my kitchen, including my stuff. I couldn't find anything in my own dang kitchen. I told her to move it all back exactly like it was before she effed it up, or her boyfriend would have to buy all his own kitchen stuff. Story 21. Had 3 other housemates at the time. We all rented a small apartment on the beach from a friend. We played Risk, the board game, regularly, and we were in easily a 10+ hour game that was going on for a few weeks. Super intense. The board is safely in the corner on the dining room table. No activity on the table is allowed when a board is on there. Well, one of our housemates came back with her friend after the bars, and let's just say her friend is a dumb, annoying drunk who doesn't know her limit at freaking 30 until she passes out. It was a weeknight. All of us had work the next morning. Being a small place, then boisterous girls woke us up. Not a big deal, but then we hear, "What's this crap?" And we just hear a hand swiping the game board with game pieces falling everywhere. This freaking female dog just ruined our game in one fell swoop. The three of us that were home rush out of our respective rooms and see the nuclear holocaust that was our world. We flipped the F out. Even our mate who brought her was not happy. She basically tried to play dumb, then says, "What's the big deal?" We all gave her a blanket, told her we are all going to bed and get the F out by tomorrow morning. Unacceptable. Then she puked in our toilet, didn't clean up after herself, broke our shower curtain rod. How? And if I recall correctly, she left food out that went bad by the next morning. About a year or two later, she essayed another one of my friends. She's an idiot. Edit. Wow, this kind of blew up. So thanks for the upvotes, everyone. Who knew I just needed to tell this story? The funny thing is there was so much more to the story in this apartment and the roommates. But it's OT. My one roommate, great friend of mine, is the most happy, outgoing, positive person there is. There have been 2 instances that he ever got extremely mad. One was when he was overseas. He was the most angry out of all of us in this situation, and it kind of broke the tension seeing him so mad. Kind of like a cute puppy trying to be all bark. He was leading in the game. We bring it up all the time to him. I might share this with him honestly. The reason why our risk games take long is we do change some rules. 1, we play capitals. Each player has to put a dime on one of their beginning territories. You get 1 additional reinforcement per turn for every capital you own. 2, we also limit the cards and reinforcements to be static. 3, the fact that we have all been playing for close to 15 years means it's all about the rules, strategies, and alliances, which can or cannot be disclosed to other players. No phones though. So yeah, 10 hours is average for us. This one was just a perfect storm and it was a really good even game. That is until this female dog came along. My group of friends have since cut her off. She's toxic, and after the thing with my other friend happened, that was basically it. He didn't want to press charges, and luckily protection was used. He had no idea according to him until the next day. I have seen her in places and immediately left. She's lucky it wasn't me. I would have pressed charges. She's not in prison, but a good rehab stint would do her well. She's extremely entitled. There was never a reason to take pictures of the board because we all trusted one another. Since this, we have taken pictures at the end of each session. Story 22. Back when we were newlyweds, my husband invited his guy friends for the weekend to do some activity. It's fine. I love most of his friends. I was going to put them on air mattresses in the basement. They arrived and the one friend I only tolerate shows up with a woman unannounced. We were all like 22 to 23 at the time, but his date was in her 50s. Not that the age issue was a thing, it was just interesting. Anyway, the woman was nice, but he completely ignored her the entire weekend. She spent the whole weekend hanging out with me. They didn't even get her a ticket to the event they went to, so I had to talk to people I don't know when I just wanted to relax around the house that weekend. There was also the issue that I couldn't put her and him in the basement on the air mattresses. I had to move my kid out of her bedroom and have her sleep with me. Yay! The friend ended up getting really drunk and breaking something on the storm door. We had to go buy some replacement part. But the most fun was what happened a week later. After my mom came to visit, I found a box of ribbed for her pleasure condoms in the bathroom cabinet. We didn't use condoms, so they definitely weren't ours. The only thing I can figure out is that they dropped their box in the throes of passion, and my mom found them in or around the bed when she slept there. Not that condoms are an embarrassing thing for a married couple to own, but now she thinks we have kinky relations in our daughter's bedroom. Yay! Inconceivable! No pun intended. Story 23. This one dude at a party bragged that he never got hangovers. He then drank beer, vodka, champagne, and Boone's Farm while eating red vines. He threw up pink all over my carpet. The rude part was that after he slept on my couch for the next 24 hours, he left my front door open. When he left, I was at work. I came home to an open, not unlocked, but open front door. Edit. Sparkling white wine, not a city in Illinois. Also, and I thought this would be obvious, yes, he had a hangover so bad he could only lie on the couch and moan for a day. Story 24. I think I might be too late, but I'm going to post this anyways. When I was younger, my family had to take in foreign exchange students to make some money. It was usually a pretty fun experience, and I got to learn a lot about other cultures. One student from Japan came. He was very shy and awkward around us. It's pretty common for the Asian students. I'm assuming it has to do with their culture. So pretty much the only times anyone would see him out of his room was when we were eating. After a couple of weeks of him staying with us, my dad found holes in the wall in our living room, which we later discovered he had been stabbing our walls, and after he blamed me for it, I was 9, we asked that he doesn't stay with us anymore, and he left. The only thing we had left to do was clean out his bedroom because there was another student coming. It turns out he left us a present for us. Underneath his sheets was hundreds of tissues covered in semen. We were unable to follow up or let anyone know because for some reason the Japanese have a special coordinator set up and she refused to inform the parents of the student and the house he was going to be living in. Story 25. My wife's sister was traveling through the area where we live on a cross-country trip. My wife hadn't seen her in 10 years and hasn't seen her since. This was 8 years ago. She gets a hotel a few miles from our house, updates her Facebook, and doesn't call. My wife has to basically guilt her into meeting us somewhere or stopping by. She decided to stop by, and she brought her tiny loud dog with her. It peed and crapped all over the house while we briefly visited. Less than an hour. She didn't offer to help clean it up. I've been married to my wife for 15 years, and it remains the only time I've ever met that sister. Seems like a decent trade. Story 26. My parents were coming to visit from the opposite coast for the first time since I'd moved away, planning to stay in my guest room for the week. My aunt invited herself along at the last minute, guilting me into giving her my bedroom, leaving me on the couch. Then in the morning she complained that my bedroom TV didn't work properly. It didn't have a cable, was just set up with Chromecast. I also had to change all the reservations I'd made for 3 to now be 4, and had to sell tickets to a performance I bought because it was sold out and I couldn't get a 4th ticket for the aunt to join us. Sounds like the key to dealing with all these inconsiderate family members is to never let them know where you live. Goodness gracious. Story 27. Had a couple over for dinner, friends of ours. My wife was pregnant at the time. Cat pooped in a litter box in the basement. Buddy's wife told me to change the litter, saying it was due to my wife being pregnant. I said I would after the board game we were playing was over and nobody could smell it. She said, "But your wife is pregnant." I said, "So?" She proceeds to empty her water cup across the table in my direction. It literally went over my shoulder and completely missed me. I'm stunned briefly at how unbelievably rude she is, then begin to laugh my butt off that she missed me with a full cup of water point blank. I end the game and tell them to go home. She says, "We should do it again sometime." No, you rude female dog. I put up with you because your husband is my good friend. Wife and I close the door behind them after they leave, look into each other's eyes in silence for a few moments, then laugh our butts off again at what the heck just happened. Story 28. We had friends who were a couple, and the girlfriend was notorious for being high maintenance, and her boyfriend was too nice for his own good sometimes, would bend over backwards for her. One evening we invited them and a few other friends over to our place. We made dinner and desserts and had drinks for everyone, and we had invited everyone over for a game night. I guess she had gotten bored, they'd only been over for about 2 hours or so, and started asking everyone if they'd rather go see a movie and just wouldn't drop it. So my husband and I were like, okay, we have movies here if that's what you'd rather do. But no, she wanted to see one that had just come out, and her boyfriend tried talking her out of it at first, but then eventually gave in and was like, well, we're gonna go to the movies, and it made it super awkward, and no one else seemed like they wanted to go, but he called a lift for everyone, so we were kind of guilted into it. I thought it was a very douche thing to do, but we were new to town, and they were the first friends we made, so we let it slide. They later had a nasty breakup, and it all came out at how controlling and manipulative she was. Story 29. My crappy cousins were allowed to run wild. I hated it when they came over. The younger one was around 11 and was just oblivious to all social expectations. He helped himself to the fridge and ate all the ice cream we had, then complained that it wasn't any good, and just roamed around the house rummaging through our stuff. His older brother, who was a year older than me and was 16 at the time, waltzed into my room and started messing with my guitars, which I was protective of because they're effing expensive, and would change the tuning, whack it around, etc. Then he picked up my air rifle, which was powerful enough to kill at least a squirrel or rabbit, went outside and started pointing it at my neighbor's cow. I'm very non-confrontational and usually just put up with annoyances, but I tore into him for that. I was taught from the time I was a toddler that you don't ever treat guns like toys, and you never point them at anything you don't intend to shoot, whether it's loaded or not, especially effing living creatures. Thankfully, they weren't closely related, and I only saw them like 5 times in my life, but them being basically strangers to me made their behavior even more mind-boggling. Story 30. When Pokémon Go first came out, I made tons of new friends around my neighborhood. We'd meet up and walk around and just feel like kids again. This one girl, I wasn't super familiar with her, but she seemed nice enough, added me on Facebook, and I didn't think much of it. We talked a couple of times, no big deal. One night though, out of the blue, she texts me freaking out that her BF kicked her out and she had nowhere to go, and could she crash on my couch, just for the night. Well, my roommate wouldn't have been cool with it, so I just told her to come crash in my room and I'll sleep on the floor. So she gets there and says she has some stuff for class the next day, college, so she starts doing it, and we just chill. Then she asks where the bathroom is and I tell her. She comes back high AF on legit drugs. She just plops on the floor and stares at her notes. Meanwhile, I'm texting my friends trying to figure out what to do. Eventually, she just, falls asleep. I spent a lot of the night not sleeping and hoping she wasn't dead. I called her an Uber in the morning and blocked her. Congratulations! You just caught a wild addict! But seriously, I hope she's alright. Pokemon Go, it's a gateway. Story 31. My wife had a friend who has kids come over and stay at our house. 5 kids. The woman let the kids run around our house wherever they wanted, even through our doors that were closed and they had been told not to go through. At one point, 2 girls were in the bathroom and started flashing items, including a brush that got stuck in the bend of the toilet. I was never able to get it out and we had to buy a whole new toilet. At the end of the night, when we were getting the kids ready to go to bed, she took her 5 kids and sat in the middle of our living room and sang Christian songs. Yes, Jesus loves me, and other horrible things. She then sent the kids to bed and told us we had to go to bed because she didn't want us waking up her kids. I am not the type of guy who tells his wife what she can and cannot do, but I told her, when they left, that they will never, ever be allowed in our house again. She agreed without argument. The woman did try to come back to stay, and my wife told her flat out she had to stay in a hotel, and she could visit them in a public space. Now look, I don't mind some good Christian karaoke every now and then, but, be a little bit more considerate, alright? Thou shalt not be a nuisance. Story 32. My roommate and I used to make dinner for friends every Monday. Everyone knew and I never spread the word. A bunch of random people would just show up each week. One guy never missed it, even though I didn't actually know him that well, just tangentially through coworkers. And I didn't really like him much, to be honest. One night he got there very late and helped himself to the food, which was pasta that night, cooked al dente. As soon as he tried it, he started female dogging. This is the most undercooked pasta I've ever had. It tastes terrible. Someone needs to show you how to cook pasta, etc. I just took it without saying anything, thinking to myself, sorry, it's not my fault your mom has overcooked your macaroni your entire life. But after that, my motivation for doing the weekly dinners died, and I stopped. Personally, I would never ever say anything bad about someone's cooking as a guest at their house, even if it was terrible. Story 33. A friend of my dad lost his house, and we had a former B&B, so we invited them to stay with us. We housed and fed them for weeks while they found another place. For that, we got roaches, criticisms of our food. My dad was the executive chef at a freaking country club and was a dang fine cook, but that wasn't the worst for me. Then in my late teens, the day they left, I went to play my favorite game on PlayStation, Sled Storm. Couldn't find it. Overturned freaking everything, but I couldn't find it. In searching, I noticed something even worse. My SNES, all games, and half my N64 games were missing in addition to Sled Storm. They had stayed with us as a favor and stolen half my crap that I had paid for with my birthday money saved up for over years. F those people. I didn't realize how often people were stealing video games as children. I'm glad I didn't have friends growing up. Story 34. This is about an undisciplined kid. I hate those. My mom attempted to hold piano classes in our house once, and there was this one time when a mom and her young, 7 years old, daughter came for an inquiry. All the time, the mom and my mom were standing and talking, and the daughter was walking around touching everything, opening all the containers, looking in, playing with things, and the mom acted like she didn't see a thing. The daughter opened a container above our piano and pulled out sheets of stickers. My stickers. She really liked them and turned around to ask her mom, "Mom, can I take these?" To which her mom replied, "Yeah, sure." as if it's theirs. My mom didn't say much, and as shy as I was, I didn't say anything either. Over a decade later, I'm still angry about the incident. This freaking girl just went ahead and took my stickers. That sounds like a minor inconvenience. Oh, sorry, but come on, that was all right. Story 35. A married friend of my fiance was staying with us for a week. She ended up going out and meeting some dude somewhere and invited him over to our place to F. When they got there, my fiance and I were both home, so the friend asked if she could borrow our bedroom. When we said no, the guy asked if he could shoot up some drugs in our apartment. When my fiance told him no and asked him to leave, he groped her. When she told me to call the cops, he pulled a knife and threatened the both of us. This is the only time I've ever pointed a loaded gun at another human being. When the cops arrived, we found out the crap bag had several warrants out for various crimes, including aggravated assault and SA. We don't talk to that friend anymore. And we did inform her husband of this situation. Story 36. This may not get read, but whatever. It meant a lot to me at the time. I was a pretty recent college student who at the time was willing to give people a chance. Still do, but less trusting now. I had this one roommate who was just a massive narcissist and borderline psychopath, purposely manipulated people, tried to toy with their emotions to get a rise out of them. The whole thing. And the only reason I put up with him was my other roommate, who was a great friend. Mr. Ponytail Narcissist decides to bring his friends, plural, over for something he liked to call getting Wednesdayed, which was a ritual for getting crap-faced in the middle of the week. Well, us productive members of college don't usually do this. I try and ignore it per usual and fall asleep. Next morning, I found out one of his extremely overweight and equally as crappy human friends decides to try and fight everyone at the party for trying to calm him down. Because he's loud and it's a Wednesday. People are trying to sleep. Crazy concept, right? Well, I found out they finally restrained him and he went to sleep. On my futon that I love. This giant tub of lard decided to open up his bowels all over my futon. Pee and poop everywhere. I'm still bitter about it today. I really want to say futon, but I'm not gonna say it. Story 37. I'm a manager at a small company and my best friend and his wife works in sales under me. So it can be a little awkward inviting them to dinner. But I finally got them to come over for a dinner date with me and my live-in girlfriend. The night was a total disaster. They showed up and it was pretty clear they just wanted to eat and then leave, and didn't understand that the roast needed time to cook. There was also some tension between my girlfriend and his wife because honestly, my girlfriend was a little jealous and thought his wife was into me, which I can kinda understand because I was changing in my office at work one time and she walked in on me and saw my junk. I tried to ease the tensions by showing them around the house and stuff. I just got a new flat screen TV and my girlfriend showed them around her work studio and her office upstairs. We also listened to some music sang by a guy my girlfriend used to work with. Another friend from work showed up kind of unexpectedly and brought a date as well. It threw me for a loop, but I figured what the heck and made some room. He'd even brought some wine. This caused a huge fight with my girlfriend. I had some awards from work and she actually threw one and broke my brand new TV, which really sucked. The cops came because the neighbors heard all the yelling and I spent the night at the second friend's place. I guess it helped me realize I was in an abusive situation, so I suppose it ended up being a win-win-win situation. Story 38. This happened about a month ago. We live in North Carolina and got hit with a hurricane. My sister-in-law's place got messed up and we let her stay with us for a little while. After about 2 weeks, she started taking Adderall amongst a slew of other meds and was getting really effed up on it. She started locking herself in the bathroom and sleeping on the toilet, leaving the door open and falling asleep while smoking outside, and passing out on the floor in random places and leaving pills scattered all over the floor. Not to mention we have 2 small kids who were running around. When we asked her to stop taking the pills, she freaked and told us she was going to claim residency at our place and that my wife was only with me because I had money. I told her I was done and it wasn't safe for our kids. She had to go. She ended up saying my wife was dead to her unless she takes the kids and leaves me. Needless to say, she chose to stay, and now we don't have to deal with her sister's problems anymore because we're dead to her. Story 39. Had a bunch of people over for a New Year's event. One woman I used to work with was invited. We were pretty good friends at work, and generally her and my wife got along. The whole night she sat there hitting on me and trying to put her hand on my knee. It was really weird, not to mention she had recently gotten married, which made it extra awkward. I wrote it off as something weird until I talked to my wife the next couple days. Turns out she'd been talking to my wife a lot that night and kept trying to imply I had cheated or was going to cheat. Basically kept trying to wedge her way into our relationship in a really effed up way. Luckily, my wife isn't stupid and just ignored her bullcrap all night. So I cut ties with that person, and luckily we don't work together anymore. Ran into her a couple of times since then. Been polite, but also cold. Such a weird situation. Story 40. My grandpa was a carpenter, and he made for me for Christmas when I was around 6 or 7 the most intricate and beautiful dollhouse imaginable. It had electrical fittings with tiny chandeliers, it had furniture, had fireplaces and doors, wallpaper, you name it. My mom organized a play date at our house a few months into the new year. I remember watching in horror as the chandeliers were ripped from the ceilings, doors ripped off their hinges, etc. It wasn't wear and terror, it was mindless. I ran crying to my mom and the other mom of my playdate. The other mom laughed it off and said that's why she won't get expensive things for her daughter. It absolutely broke my heart, and probably my grandpa's too. As such a careful and thoughtful child, I hope someone explained to him it wasn't me that destroyed the dollhouse so quickly. The older I get, the more I realize what an awful thing that child did, and moreover, how the parents handled it. I still think about it now. I hope I can restore it if I ever have children of my own. Story 41. My brother was having an end-of-the-year school party, which meant like 60 of his 16 to 18-year-old friends were plastered drunk in my basement. I'm 2 years younger than my brother, and my age group hadn't really hit their full party stride yet, so this was kind of my first experience with drunk teens. I was walking down the stairs into my basement, spotted this one dude attempting to give some pre-frat bro speech from on top of the table. He kept trying to get the room's attention and was screaming for everybody to shut up, but nobody cared about anything other than being drunk and catching up with their friends. Long story short, this dude got frustrated that nobody cared about his soapbox moment, and he proceeded to leap off the table he was standing on and effing WWE elbow drop the brand new ping pong table in the middle of the room, splitting it in half and knocking over a crowd of kids. Parties can get kinda crazy, but I was just shocked at the audacity of this kid. That's not your table. This is not your house. My parents are out like $400, and now everybody thinks you're an idiot. To this day, I suck at ping pong because I never got to really get the chance to play. Also, that kid is now a police officer. He's also probably a Bills fan. Story 42. My son, from the age of 5 to 12 years old, had built every Star Wars Lego ship together, minus the Falcon, which was to be our next set to build. We even had our own Lego lingo. He'd say, "Mom, I need a 2x4 on a 1er." So on. This was our thing to do, as he has a twin sister, so it was important that I spend quality time with each of them, doing things they each love to do. I had invited a friend over who brought her son. We will call him Master Destroyer, MD. MD is known to be a troublemaker. His father passed away and Mommy lets him get away with whatever he wants or does. He was upstairs playing Legos with our son while I visited with the mom. My mistake. When next thing I know, son comes down visibly upset, only for us to find out MD had picked up every single Lego Star Wars set we had ever built together and smashed them on the ground. Friend made MD apologize and they left right after. Our son never touched a Lego again after that. It wasn't just the destruction of the Legos, but this kid, MD, ruined our thing that brought my son and I together. I still talk to the friend, but have kindly told her that her son isn't welcomed over, even though it's been almost 5 years since this occurred. His behavior hasn't changed, nor has the discipline the mom lacks. I refuse to let him take anything else away from my son that he holds dear to him. I have set the Legos aside along with all of the instructions in hope that one day when he is a father, he will crack open the tubs of Legos and have a connection with his kids as we once had. I'm not crying. Story 43. Ah man, looks like I came late to the party. I have a perfect one. My old roommate needed a place to crash as he'd gotten kicked out of his new apartment that I helped him get as a reference. My wife and I are both very good friends with him. I had already left for work and he was asleep on the couch downstairs. My wife comes down about an hour later and startles him. He's asleep, naked, on our couch. He gets up, realized he's naked, and then grabs the blanket to cover up. We had a talk, where my wife and I both explained that you can't sleep naked on your friend's couch, where he tried to tell us that we were being ridiculous, because the sheet was a good enough barrier to keep his naked body from touching the couch. Then 2 weeks after he leaves, my wife starts noticing bites on her legs. Bed bugs. He gave us mother effing bedbugs. It took us months to get rid of. My wife cried almost daily there for a little while. She was so stressed. We ended up getting all new living room furniture because of it. Now, we love the guy. He's dopey at times, and we knew that going in. We just didn't realize how painful of a situation this would have caused. That said, he paid the exterminator's fee over the course of 6 months, and he genuinely felt horrible. So he's not a bad guy, just dumb sometimes. Story 44. College roommate's boyfriend. He never acted as a guest. He claimed he didn't have to because he helped his girlfriend pay rent sometimes. He would think he could make apartment decisions, and his decisions weighed more because he was the only man and he was a cop. He would invite his friends over and vape so much that we had water damage on the ceiling and walls. He would come back from bar close on weekdays and bang on all of our doors to try and wake us up. My roommates and I kind of feared him at first because he was a cop and we were minors who underage drank a lot. He made the mistake of buying me alcohol one time, and I used that as leverage to get him to shut the ever-loving F up. Edit. On the water damage, he would turn the heat up to hot box. Didn't pay utility bills though. You would walk into a super hazy and humid vape cloud. We had brownish water droplet-looking stains on the ceiling and the top of the walls. Mercifully, the landlord didn't have a neck to look up, so we never got charged. Story 45. I once had a roommate move in on a Sunday or Monday. Say he'd pay for the room on Friday. Seemed reasonable enough. What is he going to do? Refuse to pay? He was renting, theoretically, for the rest of the summer. Like 2 to 3 months, so that seemed unlikely. He seemed like kind of a shy, weird guy, but didn't seem too bad. This was probably like 10 to 15 years ago when I was in college. Doesn't leave the room at all, as far as me or anyone else can tell. We even had a small gathering of people and invited him to join us. No dice. Friday comes along and he rushes out of the house and into a car. I think with his mother? Never heard from him again. We go into the room and we found a cup in the closet that he had peed in. I will never forget you, peas and cups guy. I don't remember your name. I barely remember what you look like, but I'll always remember you peed in a cup and left it in the freaking closet. Story 46. I got a job producing a short orientation video and asked my videographer friend from another state if he would come to do the filming. He said he would if he could bring his girlfriend and stay with us. Came home after first shoot day to find the girlfriend digging up plants in our yard and replacing them with other plants she had bought for us at a nursery. Out of line, but sort of nice, so I let that one go. Second night, after dinner, came into the living room and saw her standing on a step stool and rearranging the vintage vases I had on a mantle, some of which were very valuable, so that they were in order of height. Jokingly asked her what the heck she was doing. She said they looked better that way. They didn't. Told her to put them back the way they were, then reconsidered and asked her to step aside. I put them back the way they were. Third and final. My husband is a chef. He makes incredible pizza, spends 2 days on the dough, San Marzano tomatoes, buffalo mozzarella, etc., etc. Always makes 2 extra pies so we have them for next day dinner. The last night of their stay, he made pizza. At the end of the meal, this woman said, "Wrap up the leftovers for me because I'm taking them with me on the plane tomorrow." I thought she was joking and I laughed. She got angry and snapped, "I mean it. Wrap them up. I'm taking them." I was aghast and said, "That's our dinner for tomorrow." And she said, very angrily, "You get to eat this way all the time. I'm taking that pizza with me." It got ugly. It was ridiculous. My poor friend jumped up, apologized for her, and ushered her out of the kitchen and up to their room. The next morning, before leaving for the airport, she stood in our kitchen with crossed arms and said she would just take 2 pieces with her. I said no, she would not. Opened the door and stood there waiting for her to exit. I mean, this is all very inconsiderate and rude and all, but gosh dang it, I'm like fantasizing over how good this pizza must have been. Story 47. Probably all the events leading up to my roommate's friends with benefits sitting on my lounge chair butt naked after relations. A few years back, one of my roommates, Janelle, brought her friend Grady. I don't give a frick if she sees this, I hope her giraffe butt can see it. In to stay with us because of family issues. She was totally normal, I didn't care. Everything went downhill when Grady's boyfriend was seen at a club with another woman. It turned out to be a total misunderstanding, but she spiraled after that and tried to drag us all with her, sleeping with the guys from our school's basketball team to provoke a reaction from her ex. Bringing friends over with many drugs, I got into a physical altercation with her because there was fentanyl. and she also used my kitchen utensils to make friend Oreos all the gosh dang time. But I woke up very early to get ready for work, and I hear her having relations in the living room. F it, I'll still get ready anyway. Being a butthole, I walked into the kitchen and there they were, effing on my beautiful lounge chair. We all bought furniture pieces when we moved in, and I had gotten a great deal on the lounge chair and had it placed near the window to drink coffee in the morning. The worst part? She saw me and stood up really fast, causing all of their fluids to fall out of her and onto my chair. My best friend recounts it as the day I became a banshee. F you Grady and F your ex for ruining your mental health and my chair. Story 18. I was matched with a girl as a freshman in high school for a history project. Our project was ancient Greece, and I, being a budding seamstress, decided we should make homemade costumes. I invited her over on a Friday to sleep over because we were becoming friends, or so I thought. She lived 45 minutes away in another town. My little sister, whom I'm very close to, decided to help us by pulling out an old costume from one of her projects. She went to put the costume on the girl, and because she hadn't pulled it out in some time, my sister messed up putting it on her. She laughed and went to fix it when the girl said, "Wow, my name? How does it feel to have a little sister with severe autism?" To say I saw red is an understatement. I screamed at this chick for God knows how long. She didn't even laugh off her comments as a joke. We didn't do the project. I forced her to sleep on the other side of my house alone, woke up in the morning and she was already gone. My mom was in the middle of it all too, but we couldn't kick her out because it was late. I remember telling her how lucky she was I didn't make her get a cab home. When the girl and I got to school on Monday to present, my teacher called us up to present. I looked her dead in the eyes and shook my head wordlessly. She just dropped the subject and I told her what happened afterward. Turns out my mom sent her an email Saturday morning and they had been talking all weekend. Soon everyone knew and she blew up on anybody that brought it up and called me a female dog every time. Small school, so everyone knew my sister and I, and the comments weren't tolerated. She left school the next week. Story 49. Years ago, an out-of-town family, mom, dad, adult daughter, invited themselves to my parents' home and stayed over the weekend. This was a former coworker of my mom's. They were not well off, and they saw this visit as a little vacation to our remote home. Without any warning, they brought their two aggressive and spoiled poodles, while knowing we had a dog. We had to lock our dog in a bedroom for the duration of their stay as the other two would attack him. The dogs also peed and pooped everywhere inside the house, and the owners would simply point it out and do nothing or offer to clean it. They'd simply sit and watch my poor mom scrub the floor. At one point, I was outside, and the adult daughter walked over to let me know she wanted tea. I pointed out that she knew where the kitchen was and that she should feel at home and make herself a cup. She huffed, went back inside, and made a scene about how I, a young kid, was a rude and terrible host, and had the audacity to suggest that she, a guest, make her own cup of tea. She refused my mom's offer to make her some, and she did not stop complaining until I got dragged in and made tea. For the first time in my life, I might add. The whole thing was very strange. My parents have had many guests over the years, but never anything remotely this entitled. They were never allowed to return. Edit. Should add that my parents host their friends and acquaintances a lot. They live in a touristy location, are social butterflies, and have room in the house, so people gather there for holidays, birthday parties, etc., and sleep over a lot. Over the decades, it's the only occasion that stands out. People are generally well-mannered and nice. Story 50. One time in elementary school, I invited a kid from school over to play video games. He took off his shoes when he got in and left them by the front door. When my mom got home, she smelled his shoes, and they must have smelled horrible because she decided to give them a nice clean to let this kid go home with good-smelling shoes. Bad idea. Right as he was about to leave, the kid picked up his shoes and roared, "Why are my shoes clean?" He got absurdly mad and told us he was going to destroy everything we owned. He was kicked out of our house and never invited back. A few years later, I went to the same summer camp as him. We were playing soccer, and when I scored, he tried to strangle me. Too long didn't read. Always take your meds. Story 51. Just this past Halloween, we threw a pretty open invite party, expecting our friends to vet the friends they bring. One group shows up when the party's in full swing and includes a work friend of a friend. I join a party game a little while later and notice that she's drinking out of one of our actual wine glasses, which means she grabbed it from the bar while everyone else uses the solo cup set out for that purpose. I get up, grab a fresh solo cup, and ask that she use it instead. I don't like to drink wine from a solo cup. I get that, but this is a party and I'm a little worried that the glass will get broken. What if I give you my number in case I break the glass? No. Despite the fact that the glasses were a wedding gift and have more than financial significance, I'd prefer not to have glass shards and red wine on my carpet. She acquiesced, but was huffy. The friend who brought her was mortified. It's a small thing in comparison to some of these other stories, but her rudeness when she didn't know who the host was frankly startled me. It's probably also worth noting that we live in the South, where politeness is paramount. Gosh dang it, I didn't get the Southern context before I started doing the voice impressions. Story 52. I wouldn't classify this as rude per se, but it's weird enough and close enough to deserve a mention. One time I was chilling with my roommates and a mutual friend of ours dropped by to try out the new at the time VR system. He asks us if it's cool to bring another dude with him, so we say sure, the more the merrier. Flash forward to mid-gaming session and the group of us are generally having a good time. Friend of a friend guy, I never learned his name, asks where the bathroom is. Nothing unusual to see here, of course, but when he got to the bathroom, we could all hear him take a shower in a total stranger's house without mentioning it. The dude must have been a raisin by the time he finished because he was in there for what seemed like an eternity. My personal, unfounded suspicion is he was knocking one out in the bathroom, but that may just be imagining crap and he was actually just taking a long shower. Anyways, he finally emerges, and he obviously didn't bring a towel with him or anything, and me and my roommates usually keep that sort of crap in our bedrooms, as the bathroom ain't all that big on shelving space. There is a little hand towel, but not enough to dry yourself. He was absolutely dripping wet and had simply donned his clothes over his soaked body. He acted as though nothing had happened, and the rest of us just kinda gave each other meaningful looks and pretended nothing had happened because we are too British to actually raise the awkward point. Oh, that is kind of awesome. Nobody ever thinks when somebody says, hey, where's your bathroom at? That they're going to go take a freaking shower. That's hilariously stupid. I mean, inconsiderate as all get out, but like, how awkward and funny is that? Story 53. My fiance and I decided to invite my friends over to our house for a New Year's Eve party. This was a big deal because we had just moved in about 10 days prior, but our friends were getting married close by and none of our other friends had a place to stay after the wedding. They wanted to extend their stay over New Year's Eve and we all never get to see each other, so we figured it would be fine. They're our friends, right? My one friend, A, was always a snobby brat in college, but for some reason all of us still tolerated her. We graduated, got jobs, she got married, and she seemed to mellow out a ton. Seemed is the key word here. So A and her husband are staying at our house along with like 10 other of our close friends. I make a crock pot full of meatballs and a bunch of appetizers as lunch/dinner for New Year's Eve. I'd spent $200 on bottles of champagne, and we had air mattresses and sleeping bags all over. Everyone was having a great time, except A. She comes over to me and asks me if we have any other food besides this super fattening stuff. Well, no, because we literally just started staying here 2 days ago. She says, oh, well, can you tell me where the closest Whole Foods is so I can go get something that I can actually eat? Sure, female dog, it's 5 minutes down the road. Bye. She comes back about an hour later, walks into my kitchen and just starts pulling out pots and pans without saying a word to me. She made chicken Alfredo for herself. At this point, I honestly don't care what she's doing. I just thought it was hilarious that she made such a fuss about meatballs being so fattening, and now she just poured straight cheese all over some chicken. And she didn't clean up after herself, of course, because obviously she deserves to have a butler. It starts getting closer to dinner time, and my friends and I decided to pop some champagne a little early. So I grab a bottle and start pouring her a glass. She asks me for the bottle and says, this isn't even real champagne. It's from California. Real champagne is from Paris. You didn't even buy real champagne? Female dog, who even are you? The Duchess of Alfredo sauce? I calmly and sweetly say that it might not be Parisian champagne, but it's really effing delicious. And it was relatively inexpensive. Not the cheapest, but I had actually asked the guy at the wine store for a recommendation, and this is what he gave me. She asks me where the closest wine store is, leaves and comes back with 10 bottles of some bougie crap. The best part? She took 8 of those bottles home with her because everyone else preferred the cheap California champagne that I had bought. Needless to say, she is not invited to my house ever again. Story 54. Not my home, but once my boyfriend and I had gotten a free hotel room offer at a local casino. We thought it would be fun to have a little staycation, so we invited his roommate and her boyfriend to come gamble and drink with us. She ended up getting wasted and asked to stay in our single bedroom with us. My boyfriend is super nice, and so he didn't say no, even though they were very much imposing. They went up to the room early, and when we got there, the boyfriend was sleeping on the floor and she was in our bed. It was a big bed, so we just let her stay there and slept on the other side of the bed. I woke up later to her inviting her boyfriend into the bed next to her, and before you know it, I hear sounds. This girl's back was literally touching mine as they were having relations. I woke my boyfriend up and told him we needed to go get something from the car. I told him what was going on, and that was the final straw. We went back into the room and he told them they needed to leave. After this whole ordeal, we only got 4 hours of sleep and our entire evening was ruined. The shamelessness was shocking. He still slept in the bed? The lack of sleep is the least of my complaints. Ew. And geez, how inconsiderate and gross do you gotta be? Story 55. I have 2 younger sisters. A few years ago, the youngest sister had a friend over and brought her upstairs. Her and her friend were about 8 or 9 at the time. My sister's friend thought it would be a fun idea to prank my middle sister and cover her bedroom door handle in Vaseline. My middle sister already strongly disliked this friend, and this really didn't help. My youngest sister told her friend it would be a bad idea, but the friend whips out too many bottles of Vaseline and gets right to it. So basically, she had this planned out before she even got to our house. She runs over and starts smearing both sides of the door handle in Vaseline. When she's done, she wipes the leftovers from her hands onto the wall. Didn't even think to wash her hands and just wipes it on the wall. My youngest sister was trying to look for towels and soap to clean up the mess, but it was already too late. My middle sister and I just got home from school, and as my middle sister went straight up to her room, she screamed as soon as she touched the door handle. My mom heard the scream and figured out what happened. She was shocked that a 9-year-old would do something like this. Immediately called my sister's friend's dad to pick her up. We aren't allowed to bring guests to our room anymore. Edit. For context, I should have maybe included the fact that my middle sister has extreme OCD, so even a slight change to her environment, like rubbing Vaseline all over her door handles, makes her extremely frustrated. Being young at the time, she didn't have many strategies to cope with the panic attack these changes at times gave her, other than shouting. Though a seemingly innocent prank, this friend really chose the wrong target.